Later today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is slated to address a joint session of Congress.
And Netanyahu's address comes after his country has spent months in a war with Hamas in Gaza that has left tens of thousands of Palestinians dead, many of them civilians. And outrage at his government's conduct during the war has left many Democrats divided over whether Netanyahu should even be speaking today in D.C.
So joining us now to discuss this is Congressman Brad Schneider of the 11th District, Northern Suburbs. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So what do you hope to hear from the Prime Minister today? Let's start with that.
Well, I think it's important that the Prime Minister share with Congress his vision for the future. On October 7th, Hamas started a war by sending thousands of terrorists into Israel, murdering, slaughtering, raping, torturing. 1,200 people were murdered, 250 people, including Americans, were taken hostages. 8 Americans still remain hostage in Gaza. What I hope the Prime Minister shares is his vision on not just defeating Hamas, but making sure that there's a future both for Israelis and Palestinians, and that the future is at hand, that there is opportunity. I had a meeting yesterday with within the Abraham Accords Caucus, which we started a couple years ago. We have a Gaza working group. We met with the ambassadors from Bahrain, UAE, and Morocco, talking about the future. How do we secure the future?
So, Congressman, I mean, I hear you, and you talked about butchering and slaughtering, I believe, but there are many people in the country, many Democrats, some lawmakers who say, okay, that's true. On October 7th, Hamas did go ahead and, attack at the festival, no question. But since then, many are upset with the way Israel has handled the subsequent action and the conflict, and they say that he and his government has been butchering and slaughtering innocent civilians. So what is your response, of course, to that? How do you feel about that? And how does the Prime Minister, what does he do to not continue to lose support in Congress?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the facts. And every civilian killed is a tragedy. And in every war, it's the civilians that are caught in the middle. And no one has worked harder than I have in trying to make sure that aid got into Gaza from the very beginning of this war. I worked with the Egyptians, with the Israelis, the United States, trying to make sure that aid got in and that the impact on the civilians was as limited as humanly possible. Israel's gone to great lengths. They have created safe zones. It doesn't change the fact that in a war, civilians are going to suffer. The war could have ended a long time ago if Hamas had released the hostages, had laid down its arms and said it would no longer threaten Israel. That's not where we are. Now, Israel's not perfect. No one is saying that's the case. But Israel's gone to great lengths to limit the impact on civilians.
But tens of thousands of civilians, Congressman,
opportunity for a ceasefire. Israel should take it.
And Congressman, we're going to interrupt you here. With tens of thousands who've lost their lives, innocent people, so many of your colleagues are now boycotting today's address. And some of them have come out in very strong responses and said, we will not be there today for this. So there's the other flip side of this, as somebody was saying, here, he's losing our support. We cannot support Netanyahu or listen to him.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not a fan of Netanyahu, but Netanyahu is the democratically elected leader of one of the United States' most important ally. I will have a chance to speak with the Prime Minister. It's important, I think, for my colleagues to hear what he has to say. It's just as important for him to hear what we have to say. And I intend to tell him that we need to bring the hostages home now. There is a deal. It is at hand. Take the deal. We need to tell the Prime Minister that if we're going to ultimately secure Israel's long-term safety and peace, it has to be by working with allies in the region. The UAE, Saudi Arabia has offered normalization, Bahrain, Morocco. There is an opportunity to take a different path. And the third thing I'm going to tell the Prime Minister that is the ironclad support for Israel has always been because support for Israel is bipartisan, and we got to make sure it stays that way.
All right. Well, we appreciate your insights. I know this is a very controversial and divisive issue and conflict, but Congressman Brad Schneider, thanks so much for giving us your thoughts. And certainly, I know there's a lot of people who are anxious to hear what the Prime Minister says today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.